Imagine that your morning begins not with a subway and traffic jams, but with the question, what should I fly in today? My private Boeing or a helicopter? And the house you leave is referred to by the media as either a palace or a winter White House. This is how a man lives who has managed to combine two statuses at once: billionaire and U.S. president. And today we will take a look at the side of his life that is usually only accessible to a select few: private residences, planes, yachts, security, business empire, and scandals. Behind this image of the king of luxury lies more than just gold and marble. There are bankruptcies, risky deals, and huge security bills. And at the same time, an important question: is he a financial genius or just a master of expensive imagery? Watch until the end. Today we will trace his journey from his family business to his own palaces and take a look behind the scenes of America's richest president. How much his luxury costs, whether he is really a billionaire, what he inherited and what he built himself. And most importantly, who pays for this lifestyle and at what cost, and what conclusions we can draw from this. Watch until the end. You will see private jets, golden interiors, stories of bankruptcies, and understand why luxury in the modern world is not just a whim, but a tool of influence. And at the same time, how an ordinary person can avoid becoming a pawn in someone else's game of status. Usually with rich people, it's simple. There's a Forbes ranking, there are approximate figures. But with Trump, that doesn't work. Some sources estimate his fortune at a couple of billion. In other years, figures of around $5 to $6 billion were mentioned. He himself calmly stated $8 to $9 billion, adding that a lot depends on how highly you value the brand. He is either the most successful businessman or the hero of bank restructurings and high-profile bankruptcies. And therein lies the main problem. His wealth is not just real money in accounts. It is a mixture of assets, debts, and brand. In other words, even he himself admits, part of his wealth is not money or buildings, but the power of his surname. At the same time, the life he shows off certainly does not look like the life of a modest entrepreneur. Palaces in Florida, penthouses at the top of skyscrapers, a private fleet of aircraft, golf clubs around the world, presidential level security. And today, our task is not simply to admire or criticize, but to understand how it is possible to achieve such a life and what lies behind this image. Trump is not someone who rose from nothing. He started out with a family that was already building huge residential complexes. His father, Fred Trump, was a major developer, houses, neighborhoods, projects all over New York City. He was born into a family of developers, where apartment buildings and construction projects are literally a family business. But at some point, it became not enough for him to simply rent out apartments. He wanted his surname to be associated not with ordinary houses, but with an empire of luxury. In the 70s and 80s, he began to actively rebuild New York. He demolished old buildings and replaced them with skyscrapers. In other places, he took dying properties and turned them into posh spots with the Trump name on the facade. He began to remodel cities to fit his brand. Skyscrapers, hotels, golf clubs, residences. The most famous symbol is the penthouse in Trump Tower. A penthouse at the top of his own tower, 3 stories high, with gold elements, marble columns, and a view of Manhattan. Inside, everything screams not just expensive, but as expensive as possible. Later, he moved the center of his life to Florida. The Mar-a-Lago residence became his main home. Hundreds of rooms, resort-like grounds, a private club where the wealthiest people buy access for a lot of money, a residence in Florida that could be mistaken for a royal palace. Hundreds of rooms, endless halls, light-filled marble lobbies, a private club where membership is a ticket to a closed world. Each property is not just real estate, but a huge billboard. This is how a man named Trump lives. When Trump says my plane, he doesn't mean a small business jet. He had his own Boeing 757, converted into a private liner, a bedroom, a movie theater, seats more like thrones, and his signature gold plating everywhere possible. Helicopters that look like business class inside. Plus, the helicopters are also decorated in his style: leather, wood, gold details. There were also rumors of legendary sports cars like the Lamborghini Diablo and a motorcycle with gold elements. Car collection, from limousines to supercars. On the water, there's a story of its own. The huge Trump Princess yacht became a floating symbol of his ambitions at one time, with a cinema, beauty salon, and helicopter pad. All this shapes the image of a man who seems to have no idea what the word modest means. Behind every "I am the king of luxury," there's always a bill to pay. In Trump's case, this is particularly evident in the story of the casinos in Atlantic City. He bets on the gambling business, opens large-scale facilities, including the Taj Mahal, which is advertised as the most expensive casino. But the reality is different. Huge loans, interest rates, market pressure. The casino is facing debts, and some of its assets have to be restructured, sold, or rewritten. At some point, he even has to part with some of his toys, his yacht and airline, for example, to plug the financial holes. His approach: if something can be branded with the Trump name, then it has earning potential. Steaks, vodka merchandise, resorts, hotels, courses, even strange sets under his brand. They tried to sell it all. Some products failed, some brought in revenue. But the main thing was that his surname became a commercial brand. People paid not only for the product, but for the feeling of, I am touching the world of luxury. When real estate slowed down, Trump turned to the stock market. He invested in shares of large corporations, banks, even gold and bonds. He always acted according to the same logic. If there was a chance to make a lot of money, he was willing to take a big risk. Sometimes this resulted in serious profits, sometimes in new debts and scandals. And this man becomes the President of the United States. His personal luxury is complemented by state luxury. The White House with a cinema, bowling alley, gyms, and a team of chefs, an official plane, helicopters, special communications, motorcade, security, and closed roads. Each of his trips turns into a mini special operation. Agents check routes, building, hotels, and airspace in advance. The Secret Service around him is like a cocoon. People, technology, communications, false targets, backup vehicles. Sometimes they launch several similar helicopters, so that no one can tell which one he is in. For some, all this is a sign of power and status. For others, it is insane wastefulness. But the fact remains, the more luxurious and conspicuous the image, the more expensive it is to protect. Any trip is not just a weekend getaway, but a huge bill running into millions. On the one hand, he refuses to accept the presidential salary and transfers it to various programs. On the other hand, his personal lifestyle during his presidency cost the state enormous sums of money. At the same time, stories from the past are coming to light. Casinos that opened with great fanfare and went bankrupt just as loudly, controversial projects that had to be rescued with new loans, and companies bearing his surname that closed amid loud scandals. Behind the facade of a successful billionaire is a man who has always played on the edge, between real money and loans, between business and show business, between politics and personal branding. It is important to understand that Trump is no longer just one person. He is a family that runs dozens of companies. His children, Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Eric, continue to run businesses associated with a family name. From hotels and residential complexes to golf clubs and brand licensing, The Trump name functions as a multi-brand. For some, it is still a sign of prestige. For others, it is a toxic history with which they do not want to be associated. This dual perception carries enormous power and enormous risk. Any action taken by one member of the family affects them all. If you try to describe Trump's life in one sentence, it would be something like this. A man who made his surname a product in itself, with luxury, risks, debts, politics, and endless attention. If you remove the emotions, what remains is cold calculation. For him, luxury is not just showing off. It is a tool to attract media attention, to appear more important than he is, to convince bankers and partners, to gather around him those who want to be part of the elite. The presidency follows exactly the same logic. Every flight, every visit to the golf course, every photograph in Golden Palace, interiors reinforces the image, a person who always lives in a big way. Even if behind the beautiful picture, there are huge debts, controversial deals, and discontent among part of society. What is important for us personally in this story? Luxury is almost never free. Someone always pays for it. A brand and image can bring in as much money as real business performance. But the louder you live, the higher the price in money, nerves, and reputation. And at some point, everyone has to choose. Do I want to create real value or chase an expensive image? The story of Donald Trump is not just about politics. It's about how, in the 21st century, one man can turn his life into a TV series, where each episode is a new headline, a new scandal, a new project, and a new level of luxury. Some consider him a genius, others a symbol of excess. But few can say, I'm not interested in what he does at all. If you like these analyses of the lives of the richest and most controversial people in the world, subscribe to the channel, click like, and write in the comments whose luxurious or scandalous life you want to analyze next. Elon Musk, Roman Abramovich, some Arab sheik, or maybe our local oligarch. It's going to get even louder, richer, and more interesting.